host, George Morang, and we're meeting today at the Morongo Basin
Wildlife Rehab Station.
And we're meeting with Jim Bird, the director of the station, and chief cook and bottle washer and all the things in between. And Jim, exactly what is a wildlife rehab station?
Well, our main function is for rescue, rehabilitation, release or relocation of injured, orphaned, indigenous wildlife.
And where do this wildlife come from?
All over the area. The basin is really just fraught with it. We have more wildlife than we really realize at times.
And if somebody comes across an injured wild animal, they can call you, and you can. Will you go and pick up the creature?
We have several volunteers. Our whole operation is run on a volunteer staff, and yes, we do. If we have someone available, we try to get out there. I also have a pager, which makes it a little bit more, as you can see out here. I don't have any phones outside, so the pager is the best way to get to us.
And we'll have the phone number on the credits at the end of the program, so people will be made aware of what they can do if they do come across an injured animal. What sort of animals do you receive here?
Everything from hummingbirds to golden eagles, kangaroo rats to bobcats, you name it, we run the whole gamut.
And you say they come from the public in general, or from state agencies or anything like that?
They come from the public, NREA on base, the Natural Resources Environmental Agency of the base. The National Park refers people to us, and generally it's the public. When they get them, they try and find out what to do. They call these particular places, and veterinarians also help us.
And are you state licensed or state recognized in some form?
Yes, I am. I'm both state and federal licensing. You have the Department of Fish and Game and the Department of Interior Fish and Game Wildlife licenses from both sides.
Actually, it'd be illegal to keep wildlife if you're not licensed to care for them. Isn't that true?
Very much so. You can obtain on special occasions permits, but you must go through Fish and Game. And one of the unique aspects of this whole thing is Fish and Game, both state and federal, have a tendency, they don't always have the same rules, and the way it's tended to is the one with the most stringent interpretation is the one that gets followed. So if the federal guidelines are more stringent than state in some instances, specific species, i.e., then you have to go by what the federal.
What sort of injuries do you see to the animals that you receive in here? Are they from natural causes or man-made?
Probably mostly man-made or man-induced. We are infringing greatly on their environment. And, you know, birds aren't used to wire. That's one of the biggest things with the flighted creatures. About 5 years ago, I was running 60–70% gunshot wounds on the birds. This is diminished.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And what would you say about people who see like a hawk in the sky or something like that? There are federal and state rules against hurting animals, aren't there?
Yes, they are. They are protected. They're on the, which one was it?
There are well, any wild animal is protected from just casual shooting and that sort of thing.
Most assuredly. They, generally speaking, the only game that you can shoot is in season, that they have specific hunting seasons for. As far as the raptors, birds of prey, they are protected, all of them, and it's illegal to possess them, and it's very much illegal to shoot them.
And it might be pointed out, being a farmer myself, that during this season of the upcycle in the rodent population, we cherish all the raptors and the snakes and all the predators in the top of the food chain.
Well, I'm sure you'll probably see a couple of our barn owls, and during a breeding season, a pair of barn owls can go through as many as 200 mice a night. So yes, they're very, very helpful to man.
Now, we're standing here. This is pretty impressive. What is this part? I see that the station here is under construction. And how long have you been in operation at this site?
We've been under construction for 14 years, but the majority of what you see right now has been occurring since July of this year. It was just, I started out as a one-man operation in 1984, and I used my house, which you've already seen, to a great extent, and small cages, flights, and so on. And it just kept growing. Last year we had 5 507 animals go through here.
Who pays for the food?
I do.
Do you get any?
Well, I work 3 jobs.
Do you get any other funding or help?
Not yet. We have been getting, like, one of the facilities, we had a donor come up with $2,500 for this particular facility that you'll see, 1,000 square foot. We are working right now. I finally decided that now is the time to get some help, because it's getting to the point it's almost eating up all of my checks. So I said, well, let's see what we get.
I can see that. But you do have volunteers that help you.
Oh, very much so. Without the volunteers, believe me, I could not even hope to do or expand as we're planning to do. We've got a great group of volunteers.
We should point out, though, for those that are interested, it's a great place to donate some money to a cause like this that we're all concerned about.
Oh, yeah. We never turn down money. The only time I say no is if I misunderstand the question. So, by all means, but also help. One of the things we're doing, I'm working through, we have an affiliation agreement with the ROP Animal Health Tech group, and I'm hoping to set up a stipend and a small scholarship for a willing student who would like to go in and become a vet or an animal health technician, and help them through their classes either at the community college here or wherever they plan to go.
Now, on the treatment of the animals that you receive here, do you do the work yourself, or can you do all of it, or do you get help from most of them? They just need a little place to recover.
TLC, but yes, I do some of it, but we do have vets involved. Currently we have one in Yucca Valley. Previously we had a vet in Joshua Tree who was working with us. They've been very gracious about it, and for my really big raptors, there's a gentleman over in Apple Valley who is very knowledgeable with eagles and such. And I do a lot of it on my own. My first year in operation, I spent like $7,000 in vet fees, and I said there's got to be an easier way to do this without diminishing the care to the animals. And I've taken it upon myself to learn a great deal about it, and of course aviculture is one of my hobbies, and I've been dealing with that for numerous years, so it helps.
Well, this is an area certainly of great public interest, and it's good that we have this opportunity to make the public aware that there is a center of this kind that can help. Now let's get back, as we were talking about all these poles sticking up here.
Those are going to be for preconditioning flight for our large raptors. Like, we've got the golden eagle in there, which is due to be released shortly.
Oh, you have a golden eagle?
Yes,
here.
we do.
Oh. Can we see him?
Oh, we might. I might let you, but we've got to be very quiet with him. Yes, but what we're planning to do, as you can see behind us, I'm going to be putting in 2 20-foot platforms at each end of the flight. They'll be a lower and higher thing, and the primary concern is to get them where they can get lift and elevation.
Well, you're going to have screening over.
Oh yes, we'll have screening. We'll do the whole works.
You're going to climb the poles?
I'm climbing the poles. As a matter of fact, I've got some climbing irons and such. They were just being delivered prior to you folks getting here. But yes, I'm going to be doing that. We'll be looping. I've got cable. We'll be putting eye bolts in it, and then we'll be running all around it.
There was an interesting documentary last night on building the Brooklyn Bridge. You might have watched that.
I wish I had. I could have used any help at all right now would work.
Now, this will give an opportunity once the birds have sufficiently recovered. There's some quail down there, is that?
Oh, yeah.
It's sufficiently recovered to exercise themselves, to get themselves back.
Main concern with them, we can get them, we can take care of most of what ails their physical problems, but then their strength. Large birds of prey, if they do not fly, their muscles become fallow, just like a human. And the main concern then is to get them like the preconditioning flight that the eagle's in now, and then this one here would be.
Well, maybe we'll get some interesting information from John Glenn about flying again.
It might be, yeah. Well, it's never too old.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that, youngster. Okay, this is going to be, and what other, you're going to have some other facilities?
We're putting a pond out to the rear. That's going to be for our waterfowl release. Every year, the migratory creatures that come through, we end up with numerous.
Now, this is the migratory season now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We're in the start of it now. Sure are.
I know there's been some news accounts of cranes and so forth. Heron, a great blue heron that flew by in 29 Palms area.
Wow, they have. I've had everything from white, brown pelicans. We got right now. My bathtub is being borrowed by some stilts, blackneck stilts.
We'll look forward to seeing them.
We get loons, grebes, everybody says, I've got this strange animal, you know, and unfortunately they mistake the blacktop, especially at dusk, for water. And they're being waterfowl, they have to water land and take off from water, and they hit the blacktop and they say, well, it doesn't seem to be injured, but, and invariably we find a pond to release them in. That's why I figured it'd be much easier to have it here.
Yeah. Well, this will be cages for the around the pond, I presume, to keep the...
There would be areas around there. It's going to be open. I'm probably going to net it in similar to what we're doing here.
You have to protect the animals to a certain extent from the local wildlife.
What we're hoping to do is have like a retractable netting over the pond itself, that when they are sufficiently ready, then they're free to go whenever they want. Just like the mallards, we've got 7 mallards hiding out over there.
I tell you what, just put an open pond with some goldfish in it, and you'll be surprised what'll show up.
No, not at all. I've seen already. I've had just one of those big galvanized tubs, and it is so strange because invariably what happens is you get some strange things coming in there. They're there. And look.
Come out the door and look up, and there's a heron watching.
Exactly.
When's breakfast?
Yeah, precisely.
Well, can we go take a look at some of the rest of the facility now, and maybe see that eagle?
That'd be great.
Okay, Jim, we're at some cages now, and I see you have some animals in here. What are they?
Well, right now, George, we've got 7 mallard ducks that were sent to me. Well, weren't sent. I had to go catch them by a Department of Fish and Game. There was a nuisance value.
May I ask, how did you catch them?
You don't want to ask. We chased them, and it was not much fun. I think that's when one who's starting to get a little long in tooth feels at trying to catch 9 ducks. But what had happened, they were at a retirement community, and people had been feeding them, and Fish and Game does not appreciate feeding wildlife, which is something I think we'll get into a little later. And several of the people complained because the ducks were using their swimming pool. So Fish and Game asked me to please go, and we're going to relocate them probably out in the 29 Palms area and let them get on their merry way.
That kind of underwrites the principle that if you don't like them in your environment, you should stay out of theirs.
Very much so. I think it's really a good pointer in that direction. And we have to learn to peacefully coexist with all types. I mean, not just the waterfowl, everything that's out there, including the reptiles and those that are not so, shall we say, aesthetically pleasing to us as human beings.
Well, there has been more awareness, I think, and certainly in this area here, you're living in the midst of a wildlife area.
Oh, very much so. All the area right in back of us, the row of homes behind us, all of that is wilderness area. This is the Little San Bernardino Wilderness Area. So. And
in the other cage over here, what do we have over there?
Those are barn owls. There are 3 of them. 2 of them are down inside of the tubular-like structure. We have numerous barn owls out here. And
now you talk.
Sorry about that. Every year we probably end up with about 15 to 20 of them. And what happens? We shouldn't have that many. And people call it. They say, "Oh, there's this baby owl. It's all furry and it's fluffy and it's, you know, so cute. What can we do with it?" And I try and tell them, leave it alone. If it's fallen out of the nest, Mom is nearby, and let's see what can happen. If you can, try and get it back up in the nest. What they cease to really realize is that after a period of time, this cute, fluffy ball of fuzz turns into basically a killing machine, which is what they are. They're very good at what they do.
Yeah, they have a reputation as being one of the most efficient. They're so silent and so effective at dark.
Very much so. It's not their sight at all. It is the hearing. They have an acute hearing. And there were several tests and experiments that were done, and they put them in a totally darkened room with some mice, and just the factor, boom, they could hit it just from the sound of the rustling of the mouse moving.
Mm-hmm. And what happened? They came to you because somebody found them fluffy little balls of fluff and decided that they needed help.
Well, 2 of them did, and the one that's up on top there, the 2 that are still down inside of the box, they were the young, and that one is an adult, and she was just totally emaciated. She's built back up. She's back into a kill mode. She can fend for herself in the wild now, and she's going to be released in about 2 weeks. We released 2, I guess it was about a month ago in 29 Palms. Matter of fact, at the end, that's where they'd come from originally, and we released them back there for Janie and the group out at the end.
I guess the point can be made that even at with the best of intentions to help the animals and the help that you can give them, it's still an intrusion into their wildlife experience, and they have to readapt themselves to a degree.
Very much so, and what we have to do and what we attempt here is we try and keep human contact to a minimum, and then when we do the releasing, we put them in and we make sure that they're capable of fending for themselves. But the intrusion factor is a good point, George, and it's something that I'd like to elaborate on for a moment. When you see something, any type of a wild animal, you say, oh, the parents abandon it. This isn't always the case. Remember, they're wild animals, and you're a human being. They try and stay as far away from you as can be. And if it's a young one that's out, mom is somewhere close by. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. Unless she is dead, she's right there and she's watching that child. And what we have to do is learn, as hard as it may seem to be to do, walk away, leave them alone, observe from a distance, and hide yourself. Then you stand a chance of actually seeing Mother Nature in action.
And that's as true of the of birds and mammals.
All of them. All of them. And the key word is leave them alone. If you can see blood or signs of injury or something, then might be the time for intervention. A lot of people call me and, oh, the baby's fallen out of the nest. I'll say, well, try and put it back in the nest. Well, I can't, it's too high. So then I'll go out and I'll try and do it. I'll either use climbing irons or large ladder or something, and we get it back in. When it kicks out 2 or 3 times, invariably you're going to find out that nature has this unique way of weeding out the unfit. And mom knows that there's something wrong with the child. She'll throw
That was
it out.
true in my family, too.
That makes 2 of us then. But they do have a tendency, they know this, and I don't know how many times I'll get one in. We've got a mocker in the house right now that the lady that brought, oh, please do something. And we will. That's what we're public service, and we'll do it. But the mother recognized something straight away, and this critter, after about 2 weeks, just legs went out from it. I've since brought it back through a really rough diet. We've had to work on dietary things and such, but it has wing damage and it's still got a limp. Well, mom must have figured this was not a perfect specimen. Ergo, out you go, Junior, and we'll take care of those that are worthwhile saving.
Well, these animals that do have some permanent injury, will you return them to the wild or try to?
No, you can't do that. What we do, that's another part of the 4 R's that we deal with is relocation. We try and find some place that'll do it, or as the case may be, a lot of them end up right here in the area and stay right here. They kind of got a hotel situation with me.
I see. I can hear some noises in the background. Of what are those?
Those are citizens, parrots. I've got probably about 40, 45 pairs or better. We've got 80, 90 birds over there. We do a rescue for them.
But this is not part of your wildlife rehabilitation.
No, not at all, but they are a rescue for them. And what happens, you keep in mind that the citizens, they're wonderful companions, but they have the mentality of a 3 to 5-year-old child. And when you get one of these animals, you're looking at a 3 to 5-year-old for 75 years. Now, I mean, some of us never do grow up, but these guys really make a habit of it. And people have them, they say, well, I can't really deal with this, and they found out that I was into it. I started out with about 15 to 20 birds of my own, and the rest of them have come from.
Yeah. I think anybody that decides that a macaw would be a nice pet to have in the house should listen to a record of a macaw over a 24-hour period before they make any decision.
Not only that, if they have wood in the house, just remember what they do to a Brazil nut with that beak and think what happens to the woodwork.
There are some that don't make good pets, certainly.
No, there are. That's a fact. But the majority of them are very good, but it takes a special person to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, we have you talked about an eagle here.
Oh, yeah.
Can
we got one right
take a
over
look
here.
at that? That's something
Sure.
big.
Sure.
Well, Jim, we're in the eagle cage now.
Flight.
Flight. It's not a cage, it's a flight.
Right.
It's fairly large. And the eagle can move around and stretch his wings. And can you tell me something about the bird and how you got it?
Sure. July the 1st, George, right after the Covington fire at the park, a lady called me from 29 Palms, Indian Cove area, and said, there's an eagle on the road. Come and get it. And I said, are you sure it's an eagle? Oh, I'm sure it's an eagle. There's an eagle there. Well, you know, I've had so many different calls come in. There's everything from red-tailed hawk to sparrow hawks and so on. considered them to be baby eagles. And I said, okay, I'll come out. And we went out, and lo and behold, it was an eagle.
You would have gone out anyway,
Oh, yeah.
because it was a bird, whether it was an eagle or not.
Any kind, but there are times, there's a difference if you're going after a sparrow with the type of equipment that you're going to take if you're going after one of these guys. And we got out there, and she was right, it was an eagle. And the guy was really, really in bad shape. He was walking. He didn't make any real effort to run away from us. He just walked away slowly. I took an infrared thermometer. We checked the temperature on the blacktop, 167 degrees. The bottom of his feet were badly blistered, and we administered water to him straight away, soaked him down a bit to bring his body temperature down. He was so docile that one of my students just held him in his lap in the front seat of the truck. We didn't even have to cage him. I mean, just that.
Is that a good idea then, if you find an animal out here, particularly in the desert, that seems to be suffering the heat or a bird, to wrap them in a wet towel?
You can do that. What I prefer to do is just soak their plumage down if we can, or just put water on them rather than wrapping them, because it stresses. You want to do as little as possible to stress them, and you start wrapping something around them, it does have a tendency to cause stress.
Your suggestion too is also to leave the animal where you find him and contact you, and you'll come to where, rather than pick him up and try to handle the creature yourself.
Yes, I wish they would. The point is, people could, you can kill with good intentions. It's just making mistakes. I don't know how many times I've had animals brought to me, and the people say, oh, I've had it 2 or 3 days, and it may be a meat eater, and they've been trying to feed it bread. Or, one of the favorite things with young is, oh, well, we fed it milk, and it took milk. Well, milk's the worst thing in the world for them. They're just, if you don't know what you're dealing with, get a hold of the people that do, and have them take care of it if you really want to help.
And we'll have your phone number on the bottom of the screen at the end of the credits. How is the bird now?
It's doing great. He was 4.2 pounds the first day of capture. He gained a pound the 48 hours after we had him. I've been treating up until about 3 weeks ago. I've been treating his feet. The burns are done fairly well on it. He seems well now, and once we get our big flight done out there and he can get some sustained flight in, he's ready to go. He's doing really great. He is now 8.8 pounds.
Great, that sounds great. There's when you mentioned feeding him and the variety of creatures you have around here, you have quite a menu.
We do. Just like for our shorebirds, I'm going to pick up 300 goldfish this afternoon. It gets on and on. Roadkill is for the raptors and vultures and such that we have in here. We try to get roadkill. We buy domestic rats, mice, etc. We raise some. It just depends upon what's available. It's surprising. A lot of my students, I got a call last night. Well, I've got a dead rabbit. Mom says I can't keep it in the freezer much longer. Can you come and pick it up? And things like this. But people are aware, and they do help us out.
That's good. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear the eagle is feeling better, and you will be releasing it, and I guess those poles we saw are part of the release process.
Yes, they are. That will get him, that's his pre-release right in there, and once he's done sufficient exercise, I feel free to let him go, and he'll be gone.
We must mention that, I don't know whether we emphasize that the poles are going to have screening on them.
Netting, you better believe it.
Netting, so that he'll be in there until you feel that he's ready to fly off on his own.
You've got that. They do well in it. That's very similar to the zoo enclosures, if you see in the enclosures at Griffith Park or at San Diego.
That'll be a big event for him. He may get some wildlife on the floor of the cage there.
That happens, and what can you say? I just hope it's not one of those that we're releasing as a success story.
Does the golden eagle, it will eat anything from the little kangaroo rats all up through the food chain, the birds and so forth?
They generally go after mammals, rabbits, jackrabbits, etc. They can handle those. They don't go after the small things unless they were really, really hungry.
Can you send them over to my farm, please, so we can have a natural control? Well, thank you very much. Let's go take a look at some of the other facilities you have here. Thank you. Well, Jim, we're at some pretty big buildings here. These are big spaces. How big are they?
Right now, we've got the overall structure is 32 feet by 32 feet, 10 feet high. We've got it divided into two segments of 16 footers, 16 by 32. And these are going to be preconditioning flights for other large raptors, owls, hawks, etc.
Then the owls we saw over there in the cage being rehabilitated would be brought over here to condition them.
Exactly. What I've done previously is, with my experience with falconry, I do them off of creance, which is a nylon, and you teach them to fly off the wrist, and it's a time-consuming process. This way, it's more of a natural environment, and they'll be able to do it.
What about whispering in their ear, like the dog whisperer, or the horse whisperer?
I don't think that works too well with these guys. They do have very acute hearing, as we've already said, but it won't work.
But it is a time-consuming process to get them to gain confidence in their flight.
Right. It's called, well, I still use the falconry term of hacking, which when you release them, there are occasions like on the top of the roof up here, I will put supplemental feeds out, sometimes if I hack from here.
And then you wait to see if they stoop?
No.
Ah,
No.
Isn't that a falcon?
Yes, it is. Stooping is on that, but what you do is you just supplemental feed for them, and then after a while you withdraw it entirely. And when they don't come back, then you figure one or two things have happened. Either they've made it or they didn't, but they're elsewhere.
Oh, so they're doing the same thing with the condors, that they put them in a cage in an area for a while, and then open the cage door, but continue to feed them for a short period.
Exactly.
As I understand it, we should make the point that, interesting as this is not open to the public here. Why is that?
Well, first and foremost, we try and keep our human contact with these animals to a minimum. And secondly, and even more importantly, our licensing depends upon the fact that it's not for public use.
What are your relations with the public? I understand you do some educational work.
Yes, we do. Each rehabber has their own way. Now, I am very anti and do not believe in utilizing our non-releasable animals for education. To me, it's more of an entertainment. Now, being an instructor, I do realize that education and entertainment do go very closely. But I'm sure all of us at some time or another, I was raised on Marlin Perkins, and we've all watched TV and all of these various folks who deal with wildlife. And it's really very difficult to draw the fine line. You see them up there, don't do this at home, do not do these. These are wild animals, and here they got all these cute little critters running around pulling Johnny Carson's hair or whoever. And, you know, it's sending a double-ended message. You know, you're saying don't do this, but we can do it. I feel that I go out, I do schools, public service groups, civic groups, etc. And I use videos and slides. I take videos and slides of my creatures from here.
And that shows the animal in its natural environment, because it's not natural for the animal to be on a leash with a handler just behind.
I agree with that totally. We've got a red-tailed hawk up there right now. The beauty of it is, I don't feel a child. You take it into, say, an elementary school, and you've got 10-year-old kids that are watching. Here you've got this large raptor on your arm. A child sees one maybe that's injured, and they say, oh, gee, I remember that. That's like the one. And they go to grab it, and of course they're going to end up with talons. You know, and this is not. No, this isn't what you want to happen. I do understand they do have a value to it, but if we're going to do, one of the things I'm concentrating on right now, we've got 5 more acres that are being donated to us. That's just down here away. I'm hoping very seriously to be able to set up for our non-releasables in the natural environment situation, and any rehabber in the area can come then and bring their groups that they want to show in their natural setting. And
well,
this would be
speaking of natural setting, can we take a look at the hawk? Oh,
he's gone.
He's gone.
It was a good-looking one. Yeah, but you know, I feel this would be much more beneficial to the public and for the animals. And again, like I say, you know, some of it's driven by the need for financing, and they figure, okay, if we take the animal out, maybe we'll get some funding this way. We fund ourselves here on a totally different thing. I'm an automotive instructor, so it makes it a little easier, but we take donations of vehicles, and my VICA group, I have 5 or 6 of the students there who have volunteered.
What's the VICA? Okay,
that's Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and we have a joint college, Morongo Unified School District, Copper Mountain College and MUSD. Are in the club. They volunteer to do anything that they can with the vehicles, and then whatever we can profit from the vehicle when we release it, why, it goes right into our funding here, and it also helps our VICA group.
What sort of vehicles do you accept?
Just about any type, as long as they're not trash. We are not becoming brokers for the junkyard. But we would like something that, you know, we will tow them, we'll haul them in, and so on. But we'd like to be able to know that we can make something and not take a loss on it.
Will you take engines separately?
No, we're not taking engines separately. But we're looking for, because we're looking then at a whole other operation that would be, now maybe the VICA would take it just to have for their group there.
Well, that's very interesting. We should emphasize again that what we're looking at here are the conditioning flight gauges.
Right.
From the step from the
Pre-release.
pre-release to the point where you're trying to get the animal to be capable of supporting themselves back in the wilderness.
Exactly.
I see. Well, thanks very much.
Sure.
There's some other things that we should see.
Well, there's some owls around over there that are waiting for us to finish this so they can get in here. They're in temporary, and we've also got my tub full of stills, so that might be interesting.
Okay, let's go take a look. Well, Jim, I'm not going to ask you too many questions, but because I can see you've got a delicate operation there. Tell us what you're doing here and why.
Well, we're force feeding this stilt because she's unable to do it on her own. It's I got it in yesterday, very, very emaciated, very weak. And we don't want to put it in water too much because they have a tendency to lose a bit of their waterproofing and such. And this one is just definitely down. We're working on trying to get it built up enough, and I had one of the others that you've just had the pictures of in there. It was almost in the same state about a week and a half ago, and you can see where it's at now. So it just takes a lot of TLC. We have to do this about 6 times a day. And she has no problem putting it down once it's, and this is a juvenile. You can tell by the coloration on the wings. Where the mature adults, all black, that's where they get the black neck on. The female has a little bit of brown on the back and the shoulders.
She seems to be responding very well. Her head's upright, and as she coughs it down.
Oh yeah, she's doing some of it. But what I do is I use mealworms and the others. They'll eat insects, anything that floats. They're surface feeders, waders, and that counts for their long legs, as you saw there in the tub. I would like to hurry up and get them released. It's kind of nice. My friends would like me to take a shower sometime in the near future.
Yes, we're inside, and I noticed that we're sharing the abode here with quite a few animals.
Oh yeah, well, it's my home. My home is their home. You know, that's what it's all about.
It's a very nice atmosphere. We'll have a look at some of the other animals when you're finished there.
Okay, that's fine. Give me a few minutes here.
Jim, what do we have here?
Well, right here we've got one domestic rabbit and 2 cottontail bunnies. One of them was broken back. One was an orphaned little one. And our domestic has been acting as surrogate mom. And surprisingly enough, we didn't think this one with a broken back would ever walk, and she does pretty good at it right now. She's doing well.
Yeah, they look very active. Well, that's good. Oh, best. Well, will they be released into the wild?
One of them will. I'm not so sure about the one with the bad back, but I might just keep her around as another surrogate where we get others. I'd probably pick up about 15 to 20 of these guys every year.
Well, it must be very gratifying to see them recover like this and be so active.
Oh, it is, and the best gratification comes when you actually release them and you watch them go back to their natural environment.
Where can we go next?
Okay, let's go into the container. That's my nursery.
Okay. Well, Jim, we're standing in a flight here now. These are some birds. What are these?
Those are sparrowhawks, kestrels, American kestrels. We have 5 of them in here. They're about ready for release also. They'll be going out in the next couple of weeks.
They look very active. They look about ready to go.
They're ready. They're over ready.
Jim, I understand that you have a website.
Yes, we do. We're on www.nvo.com. Let's see, that's Front Stroke MB Wildlife Rehab, all lowercase.
Okay, we'll put that on the screen for people that are interested in. What sort of information do you display on that?
What we're doing, we're also putting, that's under construction at this moment in time. We're going to put in how they can make donations if they want to volunteer time. Anything else, any vehicles, anything that can help us down the line, why we'll be available and you can reach me there. I also, through my email, I frequently help folks tend to critters throughout Southern California. I've had them from as far away as Honolulu for some doves, and we've just done numerous.
Good. We can call. We could go in on the email and ask you questions about wildlife.
Exactly. I do it all the time. I helped a lady bring 2 Hummers out up in Northern California, so we do that also.
Well, it's nice to know the computer age has caught up to the... Well, Jim, it's been a most enjoyable visit.
My pleasure,
I've
George.
appreciated it a great deal.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much. This is George Morang saying goodbye, and I hope you enjoy the program.